Yeah, we're not doctors or giving any medical advice. This show is intended for educational purposes only, and you should talk to your doctor about any medical issues. Now, let's get at it.
Welcome to Chat the Fat, where nutrition authors Nissa Graun and TC Hale are going to break down common low-carb mistakes. Let's chat all things low-carb, keto, digestion, and more so you can maximize your results.
Hey, and welcome back to Chat the Fat. This is episode 32. I'm TC Hale, and I'm here for the Nissa Graun Show.
I am here as well as part of the Nissa Graun Show.
Oh, good. You're going to be part of the Nissa Graun Show. Am I echoing? I feel like I'm echoey.
I don't hear an echo.
Okay, not echoey. I just feel like I'm in a hallway, but maybe it's just in my head. How the heck are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Your haircut sounds great.
It does, actually. That's part of the reason I cut it, because when I record, it kept hitting the microphone.
Oh, that's what it is.
So it helps.
If you're watching a video, you can see that it looks great, but if you're podcasting, Nissa's haircut sounds great.
It does.
So we're going to do a Nissa Graun show because it's going to be all about fasting, and Nissa Graun knows all the stuff about fasting. And I'm just here to be like the Foley guy. I'm just going to do sound effects like clip, clop, clip, clop, clip, clop. That'll be like a horse walking.
I have learned a ton about intermittent fasting, so I'm here to spread that knowledge because there doesn't seem to be as much of it floating around as there is keto. Maybe keto's been popular for a little bit longer, but intermittent fasting has definitely been around for way longer.
Okay, I feel like that we might not need the sound of horses. You just didn't seem impressed with my clip clop sound effect, but I'll do something.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm used to tuning those sound effects out all day for my husband and my kids, so maybe I just turned it out.
Right, for real. Okay, so what are we going to do first before we get into this fasting stuff?
So we have had a ton of member success stories coming out from both our Keto Decoded course as well as the Keto Challenge, which I just wrapped up. And so we thought, since we have so many people getting so many amazing results, that we could start the show with the member spotlight, just to show off our members and show off all of the amazing things they're learning and actually putting into action.
I really love it when these kind of stories start off with, I was such an idiot, and now look how awesome I am, because then people were like, wait a minute, I'm an idiot. You're telling me that I can be awesome too?
That's true. And just by listening to this podcast, that's where a lot of people are getting started, by listening to the information we're presenting, and then they are taking that and applying it to themselves and seeing some pretty amazing results.
Cool.
All right, so this week we are going to talk about a former keto challenger who is now a Keto Decoded member, and she is taking all the information that she's learning, and like I said, she's accomplishing some pretty amazing things. So I actually did the Keto Challenge award ceremony, and I put them on a stick to talk about their successes. So this is Kelly Ray on a stick.
That's pretty great.
In case you want to see what she looks like if you're watching on YouTube. But Kelly Ray started her keto journey this past August, and as a veteran of decades worth of diets that didn't really help her get the results she wants, she decided to take her keto journey to a whole new level by joining the Keto Challenge. And this is basically a 3-week challenge that I run every quarter that helps new challengers get results by learning how to keto the right way with specific information meant for them. So it's basically what we're teaching in the Keto Decoded courses, but it's more tightly compacted into a 3-week challenge that also offers prizes for additional motivation. While the next challenge starts this January, and we are going to be running that in our Keto Decoded group to help all of our members get these same amazing results. So I just wanted to mention that.
What is there somewhere that people can go just to learn about this? Because I'm going to get 7,000 questions about where do I go for the keto challenge?
The Keto Challenge. So if they want to start learning about it for the next one in January, they can go to eatingfatistheNewSkinny.com/keto challenge.
Okay, sweet. That just reduced 48 emails for me.
Well, they could get on the challenge waiting list if they want to do that. So they're first to be notified of the new challenge in January, because if it gets too much bigger, I might actually have to close it off just so I can make sure to get everyone in there the best results possible. I don't want it to go crazy big with too many people.
Right. And you really should get on the waiting list, because then your initial challenge is patience.
It is. And you need that. For weight
Right.
loss, everyone needs
Right.
patience.
It's a good challenge.
All right, so let's get back to Kelly Ray and her amazing results that she's had so far. So, after she attempted diets for decades, Kelly Ray could not get the scale to budge. Even under the care of bariatric doctors, it was just a mystery to her. So, a few weeks of following the info that she learned during the keto challenge finally changed that. And here is what Kelly Ray has to say in her own words. Deciding to join the keto challenge.
Can you hold up a sign, please? I need to
I
feel like, hey,
can. Can you
she's
see it?
saying this to me. Yes, there.
All right.
Better.
All right, we'll start over. So, deciding to join the keto challenge was huge because I've been one of the people that no matter what I do, I can't seem to lose weight. I can lose inches and drop body fat percentage, which of course is the end game, but it always stifled me that no matter what, the pounds would not come off. I can't even begin to tell you how many different types of diets or eating lifestyles I've tried, but it's been a lot. Some legit, some harmful, and some extremely dangerous. The results were always the same across the board. In fact, I had a medical bariatric doctor track me, and even he was stumped at the results. In spite of knowing my past experiences, I knew I wanted to join the keto challenge because 1, I had a feeling I would learn even more from Nissa, which I did, and 2, regardless of my past, I'm always willing to try new things to see if I get new results. Within the first 2 weeks of the challenge, I was down nearly 9 pounds, and I was shocked. I literally stepped on and off the scale a few times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm so grateful for Nissa and her willingness to put this challenge together to help so many. I know the effort it takes to put something like this together, and so appreciate her efforts, knowledge, and enthusiasm for wanting to help others succeed. Thank you, Nissa. I look forward to learning even more from you. And of course, as a member of Keto Decoded, Kelly Ray is starting to learn way more about how her body works and how to keep seeing results on the scale. And so while we only run these keto challenges for the big prizes once per quarter, you can still join our Keto Decoded membership right now. And the last challenge actually inspired me to start the Accountability Club, which is kind of keto challenge where you need to check in with certain aspects of your day, and that way you can just keep getting those same kind of results month after month. And that way, even though a new challenge isn't starting till January, they can join Keto Decoded now and get similar results.
Yeah, and it's really, a lot of times for a lot of people, it's just about, oh yeah, I have a plan. I have a goal. I should do that goal every day instead of, once a month kind of a thing. So when you have something where you need to check in, and there's that accountability, it can be the difference.
It can. So if you want to be like Kelly Ray and get big results, you can go to kickitnaturally.com/keto-decoded to join right now.
Okay, jazzy.
All right, let's
And
say bye to
been,
Kelly Ray.
okay, bye-bye, Kelly Ray. Yeah, okay, you don't have to hold that up, stick up the whole podcast.
Good. All right, so today we are going to actually do a 2-part episode because we are talking about keto and intermittent fasting together to get results, and there's a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes to intermittent fasting.
Yeah, there's a lot more than people think, I think.
There are. So keto and intermittent fasting go together kind of like peanut butter and jelly, since they're so effective once you combine them when it comes to weight loss and improved health. Except jelly doesn't really help with weight loss, and neither does slapping peanut butter on bread. So be sure to skip the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches on your keto plan and instead listen to this episode on how to get better results when you add intermittent fasting to keto with the do's and don'ts of intermittent fasting.
The intermittent fasting can still be delicious.
It can be delicious.
A peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Also, I think if anyone has any keto versions of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, they should send them to us so we can try them out.
Okay, yeah, definitely.
All right. So adding an intermittent fasting component to your keto routine can be helpful in supercharging your results, just like we talked about on last week's episode of Chat the Fat, the weight loss trifecta. Since you are likely listening to this episode right before Thanksgiving,
Carbs giving,
yes. If you decide to enjoy your holiday feast, listening to this episode to learn how you can counter any damage that you do over the holiday weekend, because let's face it, most of us don't stop stuffing ourselves full of turkey and the sides on Thanksgiving, then you can actually save your keto plan for the holidays.
Right.
So we just need to note that we're not doctors, and we aren't qualified to monitor anyone over some of the longer fasts that some people follow, like anywhere from 3 days or more, where they fast with only water. So that's definitely not what we'll be talking about today. When we're talking about fasts on today's episode, we are going to be talking about the shorter daily fast that we recommend in our Fasting Decoded course.
Yeah, I think most people listening aren't going to need a 15-week fast like some people are, doing some kind of crazy, multiple week-long kind of situation anyways.
Yeah, and there's definitely so many different kind of fasting routines that you can follow that I feel like we need to specify so people can take these tips and apply them to the right fasting routine. So the fasts that we're talking about typically start anywhere from 12 hours, and they can go up to 24 hours in some cases. But more commonly, a lot of our Keto Decoded members follow daily intermittent fasting approaches like a 16-8 approach. And if you're brand new to fasting and you're unsure of what 16-8 means, it means that you're not eating for 16 hours out of each day, and any food that you do eat typically falls into that 8-hour eating window. All right, so there are many different fasting styles that you can choose from, and some of the most popular fasting styles that I've tried and that work well for me have included the daily fast, like the 16-8 approach I just talked about. And I see a lot of other ketoers seem to follow the same approach because they feel less hunger with keto, so it's easier just to fall into that kind of pattern. And then some people will push that even longer to do what's called an 18-6. So much like the 16-8, you're just fasting for 18 hours and eating in a 6-hour window. So I actually typically follow that approach more often now. And these are the types of fasts that are done daily, although you can take a break every now and then to suit your lifestyle. So just because you commit to a 16-8 or 18-6 doesn't mean you need to do it every single day of your life for the rest of your life. It does mean that, if you want to take a Sunday off because you want to go to breakfast with your family, you totally can do that.
Yeah, and it also it's not like if you don't do 18-6, you didn't break it. It's not going to ruin it. Like you can't, if you're at 17 and a half hours and you're like, I feel like I need to eat, but if I eat now, I'm going to break the 18-6. That's not how it works. It's just, you're just looking at kind of, framework, basically. It's just kind of a structure that you can kind of have an eye on. But, the 16-8 and 18-6, I feel like that's the one that happens most naturally, just from people like, oh yeah, I was supposed to eat. I wasn't even hungry. And now it's already way past lunch and I forgot that I'm supposed to have food.
Yeah, and those people sometimes don't even realize they're fasting, but they are.
Right.
I actually saw a meme the other day that said millennials are so cool that they took the term skipping breakfast and call it intermittent fasting.
Right.
So it's a millennial thing, I guess, even though we're not millennials. All right. So other ketoers follow what's known as a 5-2 or 4-3 approach. And when you hear something like this means that you're fasting for most of the day on the second number listed and feasting or eating your normal plan for the first number listed, which can be kind of complicated. So if you take 5-2, for example, you would eat your normal keto plan for 5 days out of each week. And then on the other 2 days, you will be fasting for most of the day. And even some of these 5-2 or 4-3 examples can differ very widely. So you want to stick to your keto diet because we're on a keto podcast, so we think keto and fasting go together. So you want to stick with your keto diet on those days. And then there are some plans that you're following for intermittent fasting that will tell you can eat small amounts of food during the day. So like a 5-2 plan, they'll say on your fasting day that you can eat somewhere between 500 to 600 calories during those days. And some people will advise you to break that up, so to eat whenever you're hungry. So I personally would not advise that approach. I think if you're following like a 5-2 or a 4-3 approach, that you want to fast straight through. So it's almost like you're doing a 24-hour fast and then break it with a small meal. Is that confusing, or does
So
that
you're
make
breaking
sense?
up the 2 or 3 quote unquote fasting days of the section into, maybe a small meal in between the 1 and 2 days. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah. So there's some people that will
Mm.
say you just get to eat 500 calories no matter when. So if you want to eat 100 calories in the morning, you can do it. If you want to eat 200 calories later in the afternoon, that as long as you are sticking to 500 calories on your feasting day, that you're okay. And some people follow that approach and maybe it works for them. But for me, I would never follow that approach just because you're going to be making yourself hungry.
Right.
You will probably see less progress because your insulin is spiking and you're no longer burning your stored fat.
Yeah, if I want to have a fasting window, I really want to have a fasting window, because once you get into that window is when your body is going to start saying, "Oh, okay, I'm using stored fat for fuel right now." So I'm going to go ahead and excel at doing that right now, because it's been a while since I've had any food, so I'm going to excel at that. So if you keep touching with here's just a little piece, here's just a little piece, you keep telling your body, "Okay, we're going back to using food for a fuel source." So your body changes gears, and I just don't feel like that's as effective at all.
Yeah, and there are a lot of fasting experts that will tell you it's completely okay to follow that, but most people are just not going to see the same kind of success. So we're telling you not to listen to those fasting experts, but to listen to us.
Yeah, and you know what else is, though? A lot of those fasting experts that tell you that will also tell you that it's okay to eat donuts one day and then fast the next day. And we'll talk a little bit about why we don't think that's so great.
Yes. So those are really only two of quite a few different fasting approaches. And there's a lot more that we could talk about, but we don't have time to get into all of those, not even in a two-part podcast. While many people think that fasting is just periods of time you don't eat, followed by periods of time that you do eat, there's actually way more to the fasting story. And that's why we actually have an entire course in our Keto Decoded membership that's dedicated just to fasting, because there's so much to talk about in order to get maximum results with intermittent fasting. So we definitely believe that it can be an amazing tool to speed up healing and also weight loss, but you have to do it correctly. And like we said, you have to avoid some of those expert tips that are out there, because those could actually be slowing down your weight loss progress, or for some people, it could even halt it altogether.
And what we'll have to try to get into a little bit in this two-part episode is that, a lot of the bad advice out there actually will work for some people with some specific types of physiology. And when it works for some people, they just assume it's going to work for everybody. But we're going to talk a little bit about why it's really doesn't work well at all for some specific people with specific body chemistry.
Okay, and I did not include that in my outline, so you're just going to have to add that part in.
Good luck.
All right, so what are some benefits of intermittent fasting? So like we already touched on, intermittent fasting can be great for weight loss. It can help with improving overall metabolic functions, and it can help you heal and improve general health. And practicing intermittent fasting can also boost your metabolism, improve glucose tolerance. It will also help improve brain function and heart function. It can speed healing and recovery, and it can reduce oxidative stress.
You always leave off my absolute favorite part about fasting.
What's that?
It's the time saving aspect, is that it's just one more
Yes.
meal that I don't have to prepare and sit down and eat and then clean the dishes for it. And then, all that kind of stuff. It's like I can just kind of power through the morning until lunch or even after, just getting stuff done. It's really my favorite part of the whole thing.
Not only that, but for our keto challengers, I actually gave a guide. I think it was my top 8 tips to save money, and I will give it away here. The number 1 tip was intermittent fasting, because not only
Right.
are you saving time with all that meal cleanup and prep, but you're also saving a lot of money, because sometimes you're skipping 1 or even 2 meals in a day, and that can really start to add up over time.
Right. And I feel the same way about keto as well. And just because, when somebody starts something like this, it can kind of take some money to get set up. You need to kind of, I'm switching to these kind of foods. I got to get these kind of seasonings so that I'm not boring myself, all that kind of stuff. But once you get going, like the steaks I was eating were like half the size, and I was completely satiated just because I was eating a lot more fat. And, quality meat can be expensive. So by going keto and using intermittent fasting, I've cut my grocery bills a lot.
I have as well. I mean, some days when Jason travels, I don't even eat. Maybe eat one meal and, it's something homemade. So we save a ton of money like that.
Right.
All right, so let's start with some of the do's when it comes to adding intermittent fasting to your keto routine. But of course, those do's can lead very quickly into the don'ts. So we are going to cover the big do's and don'ts together throughout the podcast.
Cool. I can do that.
All right, so the very first one we have is do a clean fast. So as we just talked about, some fasting experts out there say that it's okay to add a splash of cream to your coffee or to drink things like diet sodas or other artificial sweeteners while fasting. And some people say that it's okay to do it long term, while others just say it's okay to do it as training wheels, so to get your body ready to fast. And I think that doing it as training wheels is okay as long as you use it as training wheels and then you proceed on to the next part, which is a clean fast. Because if you keep doing things like drinking artificial sweeteners or adding a little bit of calories to your day, then this is going to spike insulin and that can make you feel hungry, which obviously can lead to you breaking your fast early.
And I think viewing this as training wheels is perfect because it makes a person feel like, okay, at least I'm going to do this in the morning. And so I just feel better about the whole thing. But the fact is, if you've ever ridden a bike, like with training wheels on it, it's horrible. It's like, it's all clunky and you're like, what's going on over here? Get off of me. You're just yelling. So it's the same way as because when you fast by using these crutches or training wheels, you're making it harder for yourself to succeed, I think. So yeah.
Yeah, also, having small bits of food like that, it will spike your insulin. And when you're spiking your insulin with that, or even with artificial sweeteners, which could be worse because you have no food coming in, this can cause your body to go back into fat storing mode because it's waiting for more food to come in. So it doesn't need to burn your fat if it expects more food to come in.
Right.
All right, so when we talk about a clean fast, different people will have different opinions of this, but when we talk about it, we're talking about black coffee, black tea, and plain water for most people. And then if you'd like, you can add plain electrolytes to your water. And so what I mean by plain is you don't want to add electrolytes that have artificial sweeteners in them.
Right. So it's usually just going to be like a mineral drops like thing. Like we use concentrates sometimes. The keto chow guys make some really good variety of mineral drops. We're going to have them on the show here in a few weeks or month or so, something like that, to talk about them. But so it's not all this Gatorade juice pack squeeze gel goo, all those electrolyte things. It's just straight minerals.
Yes. And so, speaking of that, the things that you don't want to add to your drinks might include anything that has fat, protein, carbs, or calories of any kind. Also, sweeteners, so either artificial or the real thing. You definitely want to avoid both of those. And there are actually even some instances where black coffee or even tea can actually break someone's fast. So this is one of those things that are going to vary per person. And to decide if that's you, you really need to tune into your body to see if you're feeling hungry soon after you drink something like coffee or tea. And even though coffee or tea is great for the majority of people and it can actually help extend their fast because it can help with hunger, there are some people that they drink them and they immediately get hungry. So that is not going to help them with their fast long term.
And I'm kind of wondering, I feel like a lot of those people are people who are uh, they're naturally kind of stuck in a more sympathetic state, which is the fight or flight state of the body, um, because coffee and caffeine has the ability to push you a little more into that fight or flight state. So if you're already really jacked up into that state for one reason or another, and it could be because you're stressed in life, but it could also be just because your body is stressed and stuck in that sympathetic state, that when you push it a little bit further, all of a sudden now you're jacking up all these, stress hormone levels. And a lot of the stress hormones will trigger your body to make glucose to deal with this immediate stress that it's viewing as an emergency. So when your body's making glucose, then you go away from the fat burning mode and your body is moving into this glucose burning mode. And now you're not really burning fat for fuel and getting the benefits of a fast.
So I had mentioned the way that they can tell is if they drink coffee or tea and then they feel hungry soon after. Are there other tests that they can do to see if they're in that parasympathetic state?
Sure, just take your blood pressure, subtract the systolic from the diastolic, and then divide that number by your breath rate. And if that's over 3, then yeah, there are some formulas that you can kind of do. And I just melted people's brain and they told me to shut up right there. But if you take our almost free 4-week digestion course, it's 50 cents because that keeps out all the spam registrations. So it's big money. But you can go to kickitnaturally.com/keto digest. And that course kind of teaches you to look at your own physiology, and you can learn how to just like take things like your blood pressure and kind of understand what that number means. And there's some formulas where you can kind of look at your blood pressure and it'll give you an indication if you're leaning too sympathetic or too parasympathetic.
Okay. So our first official don't is don't eat small bits of food throughout the day if you're fasting. Now, like we said, some plans actually promote this tactic, but following this advice will spike your insulin and leave your body wanting more food to come in, so it can put you back into fat storing mode.
Yeah. And you know what? One thing to consider with this when so many people are saying to do this is, let's say that you're just fasting for a specific health benefit. And the fat that you're consuming is not one that has to be digested aggressively. You know, maybe like coconut oil is a very easy fat to process. So if you're just looking for an extended period to give your digestion a rest, maybe it's okay to do this for some people. But most people that are wanting to fast are wanting to do so to lose weight. So you want your body to go into a mode that it wants to burn the stored fat for fuel instead of just burning the fat that you just drank.
Yeah, and I think adding a fat like coconut oil, something that's pure fat, can be okay for some people. That's actually our next topic we're going to talk about. But and this might be a little too far into fasting expertise for me to talk about. But once you add in that coconut oil, some of the health benefits of fasting you'll start to lose just because it breaks up autophagy that could be kicking in. You know a
Sure.
lot about autophagy?
I know enough about it, and I believe that that is accurate as well. But I'm sorry that I went out of order. Should we start over again?
No, we're good.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
He's not reading his outline, you can see.
Right.
All
I was
right.
looking at your haircut. It looks so very nice. That's
Yes.
why.
All right. So the next one isn't necessarily a do or a don't. It's a bit of a gray area, which again, that's why we have the fasting course, because there's so many gray areas and what works for some people will not work for others. So it's best to learn all this information and then decide what's best for you and what might not be best for you. So the gray area that I have listed is drinking bulletproof coffee as your first meal. Why do you think it could be a bad idea?
Just because, like we just talked about, out of order. Just because you're kind of shifting your body from what you wanted to do to burn stored fat for fuel to it, because it's going to say, oh, wow, look at that. Look at that coming in right now. I can use that right now. I don't have to pull that out of fat cells and convert anything to nothing. I just use it. So it's going to want to do that more than it's going to want to burn your stored fat, but you want it to burn stored fat. Now, where I see this as great is if somebody is not fat adapted, which we're going to talk about real soon in the outline, because I can see it by looking at the outline.
Yes.
This can be helpful when somebody is not burning fat for fuel very well. It can be a good training wheels kind of thing. But again, driving with training wheels can be clunky, but that doesn't mean it's always inappropriate. There's places to do it. I just don't like it for this.
And I have noticed that some people who start their day with bulletproof coffee, or they attempt to, they actually have a hypoglycemic response. So why would that happen?
Because I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I think, again, it's just when food is coming in, the body's like, all right, we got food. Let's operate in a manner where we're burning food. And then when there's no glucose, but your body was pushed into this mode of we're going to burn glucose, burn food, which often means the glucose in the food that you ate or the glucose that's being converted from the food that you ate. You pushed your body into this mode, but there's not really much there. So it burns up the small amount that was in the bloodstream that, you need glucose in the blood or you just get dead. So it has to be there, but that doesn't mean you need to eat it glucose for the glucose to be there, but it has to be there. But when there's only a specific amount and it's not a lot, then your body will start converting to burning other things for fuel. Does that make sense? So it's not really burning the glucose in the bloodstream when there's a very small amount. But when you trick your body into saying, here it comes, let's burn it up, then it burns up that small amount. Now you got nothing, and there comes some hypoglycemic responses.
That makes sense.
Because hypoglycemic is just blood sugar going too low.
Yeah. And then there was one more don't we wanted to talk about in this gray area. And for some people, drinking a bulletproof coffee can actually lead to a weight loss stall. And there are people that'll say, oh, just drink BPC, and then they count it as their fasting time, and that works for them. So then they tell everyone to do it. Mm-hmm. But I have seen firsthand, Jason was doing this. He was drinking a BPC in the morning, and then he wouldn't eat again until dinner time. So most people would think, like, if you're following a calories in versus calories out approach, that he should be killing it on the scale because his caloric intake overall by skipping 2 meals would be much lower. But this actually caused a weight loss stall for him because it was like he was reverting to a low calorie diet by having that bulletproof coffee in the morning and then eating a normal meal at night. So it was actually stalling his weight loss approach.
Right, because you have a 7, 8, 9 hour fast already going when you wake up because you were sleeping during that time and you weren't eating during that time. So to stop it in the middle of that and then do another 7 hour fast or whatever right after that, a lot of times is not going to be as effective as just doing one continuous fast, even if it's shorter, because you're not switching the body out of one mode into another one, and then it takes a while to get back into the right one. So I think that's why a lot of people stall with that situation.
And then I also find out, I live in this house. I help a lot of people with keto, and he just doesn't listen to me because I also found out that for a long time, he stopped the bulletproof coffees, but he was still drinking coffee with a tablespoon of cream. And then I caught him doing it one day. So I had to explain to him, no, you don't do that if you're fasting. And so the next few days he tried it without, and he's like, you're right. It's so much easier to fast without it. So even though he lives here, I help people, he just doesn't always listen.
Well, it's also very difficult for your wife to be right.
Maybe that's it.
I'm never allowed to be right here.
Yeah.
But it is quite annoying how often I'm right.
Yes. Yeah,
so I'm annoying. It's significant.
All right. So on the flip side, since this is a gray area, why might this work for some people where it doesn't work for others?
Well, what if somebody is really good at processing fats, especially the type of fat that they're using? There's not a lot of effort that goes into that. That could make it a lot easier for them. Maybe they don't have as much body fat to burn, so burning a little fat coming in along with a little body fat could be appropriate for them, where if someone has a lot of body fat to burn, you really want the body focusing more on that. It's also really about a person's insulin response, because there's a response to everything, not just pixie sticks and ding dongs. The insulin can respond to a lot of things that we eat and almost everything we eat in some ways. So it's really about the sensitivity of insulin, because when insulin is very sensitive, a person only needs to make just a little bit to even process a candy bar, so that person doesn't get hit as hard when food comes in, to where someone else has to make a lot more insulin to process anything. So once that insulin goes high, that's when it's kicking the body out of the fat burning mode and it's switching how the whole body is operating. So I think that's a big part of why it affects some people and not others.
Okay, and so, some people, like I just talked about, might have that hypoglycemic effect, and there's other people that they just drink bulletproof coffee for breakfast, and they have a different effect where they have a lot of added energy and maybe extra focus. So this is really something, whether you do or you don't do it, it needs to be up to you and how you feel and the results that you get.
Yeah, and pay attention, because a lot of people drink bulletproof coffee just like it's a new scarf. They're just doing it because it's cool and they want to be one of the cool kids. So if it's not working for you, don't worry about being cool. I am
But
a very apparently not cool, and I'm fine.
it also tastes really good. And this is coming from someone who could not stand the taste of coffee for the first 35 years of my life.
Cool.
So it grows on you.
Right.
All right. So the next one we have is a do, and that is do wait until you're fat adapted before you incorporate longer fasts into your routine. So I know a lot of people get confused about what it means to be fat adapted. Can you explain this?
I can't.
You can't.
No, I was hoping that you could. But I do think that it is so important. This is so important of a point that when people ask me questions about fasting, this is pretty much all I talk about. And, we're doing 2 episodes about this. We have an entire course with like 100 videos like hours of content about fasting, about this stuff. But when somebody actually talks to me about it, this is usually pretty much the only thing I talk about. Because I think it's the difference between somebody succeeding and making things worse. And so when someone is fat adapted, that just means that they have reduced carbs to a level that their body has said, hey, why don't I burn more fat for fuel than I do glucose? And it's not just saying that, it's good at it. And so there's more than just reducing carbs that goes into it. Your body has to be able to process carbs. Your body has to be able to process fats correctly. You have to be consuming enough fats, all those things. But once your body is good at doing that, most people can then maybe they go out of keto for a vacation or something like that, and it might only take them a day or so to get right back in, because their body is already what we're calling fat adapted. It's just excelling at burning these fats. So when your body is excelling at this, when you go periods without eating, your body says, oh, I got this. I'm just going to use this fat thing that's stored for fuel because I've become really good at doing that. No worries, no big deal. When your body's not good at that, and you don't wake up and immediately shove a Zagnut bar down your throat, your body is freaking out. Where is the sugar? I'm running on sugar. I got no sugar. You're not giving me any sugar. Come on, sugar. And so it elevates all these stress hormones. And then the stress hormones cause your body to break down your own tissues and turn it into sugar. Ha! You're not going to give me sugar? I'll make my own sugar. Bastard. So that's why we like to see people be fat adapted before they start using intermittent fasting. And half of people out there are just saying just intermittent fast. And the reason they're saying that is because their insulin is so effective that they can get away with it. It works for them. But 80% of the population is leaning towards insulin resistance. And I just made up that number, but it's probably about accurate. And so that this doesn't work for them. And instead of getting benefits, they're just elevating their stress hormones and causing all kinds of problems. So it's such a big deal that we created this whole course on fasting, and we won't even let anybody access the course until they've graduated from the keto decoded course, because then we know that they've taken steps to get your body into a fat adapted mode to where the fasting is going to benefit you instead of causing harm and you just doing it because the cool kids are doing it.
And I think going through the Keto Decoded course first, if they're following what we talk about, gives them time to become more fat adapted. So they're not just jumping right into fasting because of all the time they're taking learning this information. A lot of people don't exercise good patience, and they're being forced to exercise patience.
Right. So I think that's big. And I don't know if we have a do that goes with this or another don't or whatever, but I didn't ask you when we're going to stop for part 2. Because it seems like we're almost to part 2. Or were we not stopping? What's my name again?
We can start after, or we can stop after the next one because it kind of
Okay.
relates.
Cool.
All right, so the next one we want to talk about is don't force longer fasts if your body isn't ready for a longer fast. So it's pretty similar to waiting until you're fat adapted. When you're going these longer fasts, you have to allow your body to learn how to burn fat for fuel. And if you haven't allowed your body to burn fat for fuel, just know that this process is already stressful enough for your body, and adding in another stressor like intermittent fasting can become too much all at once. So if you start eating keto and you're just learning how to burn that fat for fuel, and then you add in intermittent fasting, your body will just get way too stressed out and it could just stall altogether.
And just don't view how long you're fasting as a badge. It's just, you don't get extra points for the amount of hours that you're going if your body is not ready for it and it's causing you harm. You know, I had a guy who was like, I was on a 36-hour fast and I passed out in the shower and I woke up unconscious after an unconscious span. I woke up in a pool of my own blood 11 hours later. So I got in this 47-hour fast by just cracking my head open in the shower. So that's not good. It's not what you want to do. Just listen to your body and take it as your body wants you to take it.
Yes. And so we are going to ask you to exercise patience, and we are going to come back for a second part because we have lots of more do's and don'ts to talk about. We told you that there are a lot, and there are. So we will be back next week.
Yeah. So I think this one even comes out later this week. I'm not sure. Or does it come out next week?
It's next week.
It is next week.
There's
Sorry
definitely
about your
a
luck.
lot to talk about.
You gotta wait. Okay. So what you can do now is that, can you tell them about the free download that you made?
Yes. So the free download for this episode, episode 32, is just a quick cheat sheet of intermittent fasting do's and don'ts. So you'll even get a little bit of a sneak peek of episode 33 if you download that cheat sheet. And it's basically the do's and don'ts we're talking about in this episode that you can print out and keep it handy while you're learning how to incorporate intermittent fasting into your lifestyle.
Great. And you can go to chatthefat.com/episode 32 to download that. So
Yes.
we will see you guys next week for episode 33, where we'll talk more about the do's and don'ts of fasting.
And we won't judge you by trying to jump ahead and see what else we're going to talk about.
Cheaters. You're all cheaters. Bye-bye.
Whether you're brand new to keto or just looking to move past roadblocks, join us for our next Troubleshooting Keto Master Workshop. Go to chatthefat.com/workshop to find upcoming dates and register for this totally free event. You just might find your missing piece of the puzzle. Until then, we'll see you next week on Chat the Fat.